life after Intranet launch, Paul. Yeah, I'm hitting 18 to 12. Cool. I just wanted to check
What
it.
are you laughing at over there?
I'm mad. I mean, like, if I ask you about life after launch.
Life after launch.
Spot on accent. Welcome back to the Unily Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Seda. Today, we are joined by Matt Boyd, Caitlin Oriema, and Sanika Gentils, who's a CSM here at Unily. Hi, Sanika.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing super well now that you're here. You're a CSM here at Unily. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit in a moment when we introduce the topic. But I just want to say Sanika is one of my best friends here at Unily. I'm thrilled to have her. She's energetic, thoughtful, wealth of experience. We're going to have some really good stuff. So welcome. I did want to do a little bit of housekeeping beforehand. We got some positive feedback about the podcast. I won't name names, but I'm sure this person is watching. One of the salespeople came to me and she told me that one of the customers she's working with, who's looking to adopt Unily, said that this is one of the highlights of her week. You heard that right, folks. One of the highlights of her week. She looks forward to it.
The entire week? Are we talking Sunday to Sunday?
Week.
Oh, okay.
The entire week. So we're thrilled about that. Thank you for being the one that watches. We're so grateful. You must be watching it fairly consistently and over again.
Because she's
the one that watches.
You're the one. You're the one who's watching.
You are that
and we
one.
appreciate you.
We see you in analytics a little bit.
The true sign of the popularity of the podcast will be when we start getting trolled.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for troll comments. I'm waiting for
yes.
troll comments. I welcome you. To all you trolls out there in the universe, bring it on.
No, please don't.
But anyway,
Please.
I wanted to actually ask everyone how their week was, what they have going on in their lives, any good books, good movies, good TV shows. Matt, what's going on in your world?
I'm really late to the party, but I have recently discovered House.
Got it. Start counting. How many? 26. Okay. Either you suck at math, or you're gonna die in 2 seconds. You suck at math.
Wait. Yeah, I'm not going to get like... in
Yeah,
trouble
House
for
is the
saying
show.
TV
No, that's okay.
House?
Yeah.
Like,
Welcome
oh my
to 10
God,
years
are you
ago.
now? I was just going to say, are you now watching House?
Things get to the UK very slowly.
Wow.
Probably
Amazing.
because of that ship stuck in the Suez Canal. That must be
blocking
That's what
the ship
signals
stopped.
of the shows.
House.
Yeah.
And that reference is going to be dated very quickly on this show. By the time this comes out, they might have cleared it out. But if you're unsure, you can go to isitstillstuck.com. This is a real website. You can go there and check if that ship is still stuck in the Suez Canal. Is it still stuck? .com. Why are you enjoying House so much?
Oh man, it's honestly his. Do you know what? It's really cool to watch really intelligent people work. Solving problems. It's like amazing. It's just like that part of it. I think is the most interesting for me. Like he's like certified genius, going out there fixing problems, much like many of the Unily staff. Plug.
There it is. See, I was gonna say like Sherlock Holmes or Monk was the other show in the US.
Oh, love Monk.
Yeah.
Love Monk.
Good. Well, Matt, we're all glad you discovered House. Keep us abreast of
2 decades later, but
right.
Tomato.
Welcome to 1998. Caitlin, what's going on?
Well, yeah, I was going to say everybody's been doing that the whole year, right? We've all been catching up on shows. Like I started watching, oh my gosh, and now it just went out of my head, the Calista Flockhart. Ally McBeal. I watched Ally McBeal in the past year. I mean, like, that is way old. Yeah, I was like, yeah, now as a professional woman, maybe I can relate to this.
I think that's so interesting, the nostalgia of it all. How everyone's looking
at 90s.
A more innocent
90s
time.
stuff. I think it was 90s. I started reading a book that a colleague sent me called Wherever You Go, There You Are, about mindfulness. And yeah. And by colleague, it was Paul, actually. Paul sent it to me.
I sent Caitlin a book. I did.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. Did Paul send you a book?
Yes.
Paul did send us.
And I haven't been good about reading. Reading. I've watched a lot of TV, but not reading. So I'm very excited about getting through that.
I am so glad to hear that. There's going to be a quiz on it at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, it was actually.
So be ready. That's great.
Be ready. It's coming.
What about you, Sanika? What do you have going on?
Many things. I feel like one of my shows that I'm really falling back in love to is The Good Fight.
Ooh, I don't know it.
Oh my gosh. It was like a spin-off from The Good Wife. It's a lawyer show.
Is it with Christine Baranski?
I don't know her real name.
I'm going to look it up now.
Like, I hardly even remember the characters' names. It's just not my thing. Like, so I've gotten into The Good Fight. Loving my Audible book at the moment, which is it's actually, I have it in printed form, The Path Forward, or The Gift of Sundays. So it forces me to actually walk now, because it's like I can't listen to it unless I go to walk. So it's like, do you want to get through the book? Go walk. So reading and watching The Good Fight. You know, in my mind, I'm a lawyer.
So the theme today is a fun one, and Sanika was perfect for it, because we're talking life after launch. So we're talking launch of your intranet, of your digital workplace, of your employee experience platform, whatever you call it, however you're using that platform. You know, we want to talk about what happens after that. And I thought it was perfect for Sanika, because CSMs, the customer success managers here at Unily, are really the people responsible for shepherding our customers through life after launch at Unily. Sanika, tell us a little bit about the customer success role, if you could, I just in case people aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, so the customer success role here at Unily, I always see it as like, we are your strategic partners, right? So after launch, we're looking at your intranet holistically, and how we can help you drive those initiatives and objectives that you initially had for launch. But in addition, establish new goals. And what are your success metrics? What is your overall vision? So we meet sometimes on a monthly cadence, quarterly, to discuss not only new features, but like the true balance between strategy and, you know, being able to pivot, especially in 2020, right? We saw that really come alive, where your customer success manager was able to help drive not only adoption, because when everyone went to remote working, everyone needed to look at the internet, right? But really help drive engagement. And how are we doing that? What is our strategy? How are we implementing the right features and making the proper assessments via your analytics to, you know, encourage users to not only sign in, but engage and contribute in certain aspects. So customer success is your holistic strategic partner in a way.
Love it, love it, love it. And we're gonna pepper one concept throughout this podcast, I think. What it's like after launch when you're in the cloud, when you use a cloud provider, you know, intranet as a service kind of deal, where literally you're paying a subscription and someone hooks you up with some software, right? And a lot of it is pre-built and you're just doing some configuration on it, versus an on-premise life after launch. I come from the world of on-premise, and by on-premise we mean you installed it yourselves, you're managing it yourselves as a company, you're doing all the upgrades yourselves, and you've probably 9 times out of 10 done some customization, usually heavy customization on it. That is actually where I made my bones in this space, is doing all that. So we'll pepper that throughout, because it is, with a customer success manager at Unily, it's a very different experience, because the platform is ready-made and it's evergreen and it's being updated all the time. That is very different from when you're kind of rolling your own kind of intranet, if you will, or digital workplace. Excellent.
And I think, you know, that's really interesting, Paul, because I think that's actually, for me, feels like, you know, one of the biggest risks is going it alone, because you actually, it's, the CSMs, at Unily and everybody at Unily that interacts with customers are delivering an outsider's input and perspective on the problems and the challenges you're facing. And, in the same way that we don't design our product in isolation, we partner with various different people, clients, our internal teams. I don't think you necessarily are going to get the best outcome time and time again when you face a challenge if you're not bringing an outsider's distance perspective on the challenge you're facing. And I think on top of, being a strategic partner, having somebody from an outside perspective, bringing fresh eyes to a problem can help give you a bit of clarity that you don't always get working,
Yeah. No, it's a valid point. It's a
good
valid point. And how about that, Tanika? I mean, you work across a lot of customers, so you are kind of bringing lessons learned from that experience. What are some things that you carry to each customer that are the same? Because there's obviously going to be differences, but what are some of the best lessons that you carry or the messages you try to reinforce with them, customer to customer?
So customer to customer, so one thing as a senior CSM, I think it's beautiful that we're able to manage enterprise clients. But during my tenure here at Unily, I was able to manage both, small and medium-sized clients in various industries. So something that we always talk about is that content strategy, right? And, discussing how are we really managing the content, and are there additional stakeholders throughout the business contributing to the intranet? And what is your governance plan, right? Is that really outlined properly? And how can we help influence that in a way that, knowledge is shared if, people from the project team has transitioned into other areas of the business, and really helping you really think of content more or less your driver, right? That's the engine behind your intranet, is your content in addition to additional stakeholders.
Yeah. And Caitlin actually at one point in her life at Unily was also a CSM. Did you have messages, lessons learned, things that you took with you regardless of the customer size or industry or any differences between them?
Yeah. I mean, I think something that was every single customer has in common is and I mentioned it actually in the pre-sale side now too, is one of the best things you can do to set yourself up for success is to get executive stakeholder buy-in and awareness to set the project team and the people who are championing it up for success, so that regardless of the product or the software or the problem that you're solving, you need to get you do have to get the top level buy-in and support so that they're aware of what's going on. They can make decisions quickly or empower you to make decisions about like technology decisions or configuration decisions. And then also be promoting it into like teasing it and then promoting it once it's launched. So that was something that I saw as a kind of across the board, regardless of sector or size, you have to do it to be successful. And then I think the other thing too is what was always like a common thing, which probably I also think is probably agnostic of Unily. It's probably other applications too, but like branding and name. I mean, with intranet specifically, I think the whole like the persona of the intranet itself has a lot to do with the URL and the name of it and the logo and branding. But I think that extends to other things too. But getting that was always a tough decision. I think we've talked about that on other
episodes,
podcasts too, and episodes. But
do you know, it's funny, neither of you mentioned technological things as kind of the messages that you carry across customer to customer, and I'm curious why that is.
So I always have this funny analogy about Unily. I feel like it's the arranged marriage between the communications and marketing team and IT that no one saw coming. Like, I think everyone that's in the know, knows that, yes, we will be working together on this project. But sometimes when you don't have the proper resources in place, it's like, wait, when did we get married? How did I get here? Why do I need my IT resource?
By the way, if you're asking yourself that question, When did we get married? Talk to someone soon.
I know.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
This is true, but I think from like a technical standpoint, usually during the onboarding stage, the right resources are in place and they know exactly what they're managing after launch, right? So if they need to make any modifications, we can always go back to that resource. And I always say that that's an inclusive conversation, right? So they come to their CSM first and we talk about the strategy and the best use cases, and then we loop in that resource because sometimes they're not necessarily needed in the day-to-day world. And then for other use cases of their intranet, then they're heavily involved. So it's not a requirement from, across.
Go ahead, Caitlin. I'm sorry.
No, I just was from the technology standpoint too, I guess. There are a lot of consistencies in terms of when you're talking about technology decisions too, from a like, what are we going to integrate with perspective too? Because that's always like very political and like, whilst one person thinks it's, one person thinks something's critical, other people might say it's not. But what's really interesting from a technology decision standpoint is that's another thing, regardless of size and sector. Like, I'll say the big technology players are almost always in the mix when we're talking about launching and life after launch. When we're talking about like the this is not a promotion, by the way, side note, but the Workdays of the world, like the Workdays, the SAPs, the Salesforce, the Microsoft, Google Workplace, like especially I see in West US, right, with like the big tech companies using Google. So all of that is kind of like almost assumed, I think. But after launch, what's interesting, it's less about like most of the core technology seems to stay in place. Yes. Sometimes when you make a big when you're talking about big things like a CRM or productivity suite, like if somebody's switching from Salesforce to Dynamics, for example, those are like you're partnering with your CSM. To how in the world are we going to make this big shift, and how are we going to do it? Do we need a deep integration in the intranet? Or how do we move this integration over to that one? Do we want it as a single sign-on link or something? Those are all like very common.
So I'm actually going to give Matt and his team credit here, because I think what actually happens, and the answer is Paul's right on this one. No, he's not right. The answer is I actually think a lot of the stuff is already there in terms of technology. And I think, Matt, you can talk a little bit about how you guys maybe come up with use cases, but it feels like we try to anticipate what customers are looking to do so that it's already in the product and you don't have to spin your wheels on that, which may not be the case if you're building from the ground up. I don't know. How do you anticipate our customers' needs, or are you throwing darts at a wall?
No, hey, the goal is always to be ahead of the requirements for our customers. We want to have the answer to the problem the moment they turn to their CSM and say, hey, my business is facing a new problem. What can you guys do to help? We want to have that solution pre-packaged, go to the store, install this, this little plugin, this little app that we've built for you, and boom, turn it on. It's up and running. It's good to go. I guess, for me personally, and, I'd be interested to know, from Sanika, how true this is, having been out of the customer facing game for a while. Yeah, it's been a little while. But for me, I feel like once you go live with the intranet, it can be very easy to get, very focused and stuck on the day-to-day, like pushing out your communications, helping somebody set up their site, or encouraging people to maintain their kind of pages, reviewing old content and all those kind of general activities that, because it does take time and effort to maintain a high quality intranet. And I feel like sometimes those big ideas, like, in 6 months after the launch, we're going to integrate our CRM. We've got a CRM program going on, and, then we're going to integrate it. And I guess for me, I kind of wonder, how much does the CSM actually play the role of, oh, you're ready to do that 6 months down the line? Or how much does the CSM actually have to remind them, I know that you're maintaining your intranet, but do you remember 6 months ago when you told me you wanted to do the CRM thing?
Well,
maybe we should still do that, right?
Do you do that, Tanika?
I was going to say, actually, what's really interesting enough is when you build a relationship with the client. See, before I was talking more about technical resources, and now that we're talking more technology and, integrations and things like that, once that relationship is built, they come to us and we have those conversations around, now that we've solved this problem, right, via out of the box configuration, have you considered bringing in an integration? Have you, and I actually prompt those questions, right? Are you using a CRM internally right now? What we want to do is make your intranet your single source of truth. We want your users to come here instead of having 3 or 4 tabs open and so many different apps and tools. How can we unify that experience? So what happens is we have, like, again, back to those like reports, right? So we're looking at your analytics and showing you what your users are doing. And it's in those conversations that we say, hey, we have these new features in the feature store that I actually think would be really great for your instance. Because I see that you're using another tool such as, again, this is not a promotion, but ServiceNow or something like that. And we think that it would be very useful, seeing that your IT page gets so much traction for resources, right? So we actually prompt those conversations. And sometimes a client comes to us and say, we're considering this product. What are your thoughts? Well, we have a lot of those questions.
Really? They ask you what you think of another product?
Yeah. And do we think it would integrate seamlessly? And what do we think would be the best experience, being that their users are already pretty much engaged with their intranet?
Or I bet too, what I remember coming up to is we have this department, right, who's considering some, especially at a big organization where you have people acting in such silos.
Yeah.
We just found out like that this department's considering like a recognition tool or something.
Yes, it happens all the time.
And we want to onboard them into Unily or something like, this is exactly the use case that they have. Can you solve for it? And then I think too, it's adapting to, you have to be flexible sometimes if you're making the commitment to use cloud technology or software as a service, not just cloud, but more software as a service. Like, you have to flex your requirements a little bit to fit more, to be
absolutely.
out of the box. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
I think that happens all the time where a client says that, listen, I open an RFP for this, and I said that, hey, this is actually functionality that's within the product, right?
Yes.
And more often than not, what we have to establish is maybe your route from A to Z won't be the exact same way, but I'll get you to A to Z. And it may be a little simpler than you initially thought, right? So we always walk through those different workflows. And I think that's one of the best things about Unily, that, hats off to the product, that it's highly configurable, that a lot of things are out of the box. And a feature that was built to do X can also do Y and Z.
So I'll tell you a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting to me how quickly we can. You said something there, Sanika. A customer came, you said, we're going to have to do an RFP for this. And you're like, that's in Unily, right? Like, you already own that, kind of. You have it. Let me show it to you.
By the way, you already paid for that?
Yeah, you've got that. It's included. Because in the on-prem custom days, again, I made a very good living doing that. I'm grateful for it. It's what brought me to Unily. But I remember some of my most like mission critical things being, our CEO in a month wants us to be able to roll out a campaign for the town hall he's doing and an action he's doing, a month, mind you.
Yeah.
And some actions they're undertaking to let people know that this is going on. Can we possibly figure out a way to meet that timeline? Whereas like customers today, they switch their homepage, by clicking a button. They pre-build it out. They take a couple days to play around with it. They shop it around, and then they hit the button, and that's their new homepage. Yeah. I'm telling you, it took like a team of 10 people in the old days to change your homepage in anticipation of something that was happening a month out, right? Like, that's a big, big difference. So I think it's instructive of how much things have changed, that yes, the technology is there to support it, but I also think the expectation is the technology has to do that. And that's why I'm happy to say, for us, I think it's less about can the technology do this and more about who do we need and what do they need to do so that we can be as efficient as possible to get back to our lives prior to this kind of emergency. Which brings me to the question of a roadmap. So we have a roadmap as a product.
Yeah.
But I know we also advocate our customers having internal roadmaps. Sanika, what's your experience with the internal roadmap, and what do you
Yes.
talk to customers about?
Absolutely. I think in order to have a successful intranet, I think it has three major drivers, right? You have your vision statement, you have your success goals, which have their own individual metrics, and then you have your roadmap. Because at times, just because the product has released a feature, Q1 of 2020, your audience may not be ready for that at this current time, right? We already had something else scheduled that maybe was launched a little bit later in the year. And we also want to align it with those culture initiatives that the organization has going on. So we look at it from more holistically, right? Again, thinking about what's best for your organization and your users, and how is the product supporting it. So our roadmap is amazing. We have all the great features, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're empowering your intranet and moving those cultural initiatives forward, moving those metrics to the forefront of the conversation. So they have their own roadmap that it's included content, includes technology like Caitlin was talking about a little bit earlier, those implementations. And then we look at features and how are those features amplifying that.
No, brilliant.
Absolutely. And I think
go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I was alluding to before. Like, it's not just a stream of technology evolution, and that's I guess in my mind is the point I was making before about the strategy portion, that partnering with an organization or having like an external partner really brings into the mix, is that focus on strategy and saying, well, we set this roadmap at the start of the project, let's see where we got to. Okay, well, we didn't proceed with the CRM piece that we talked about after 6 months, but with good reason, we weren't ready. Now we're moving on to this piece of work. Is this proceeding? And it helps, and that's the thing I was thinking as well, like, our customers, after launch, just getting bogged down in the day to day, and how do CSMs help to keep them strategically focused? Because obviously this is long-term investment, right? The challenge that we've always had in the industry for internal communications and intranet solutions is solution churn. You get kind of 5 years down the line, you've got some battered, old, unloved.
And also like it's interesting to see how that roadmap at launch changes significantly based on the data, right? We review analytics with you pretty frequently, from monthly to quarterly, and we help you make those data-driven decisions, right? Because what you thought would be amazing, would be the driver on your intranet at launch, may not be the same in Q1 or a year later. And it's important that we are looking at that again from a strategic standpoint to say we need to pivot. We need to pivot. We need to touch base with our audience, because some of the initial IA is no longer relevant, right? And that information architecture is no longer serving your audience, and we need to make changes immediately.
And I think Caitlin and I see that in the sales process too. Like, they come to us, they tell us what they're thinking, and we're like, yeah, that's fine, but that may not be what you want 6-8 months, a year out. I mean, go ahead, Kate. I don't mean to
No, I was actually, I totally, our conversations at the timeline of it, right? If you're looking at from the time they start investigating like different solutions that are going to meet their need to the time that they're like a year post launch, like the aspirations, are totally going to evolve. But I was thinking too the thing, and this isn't just plugging our customer success model, but the thing that I like about our customer success team too is that we are not solely focused like a lot of CSMs are with SaaS solutions on, we got to hit this engagement number, we got to hit this session count and dwell time, because it's so variable among customers, because they all have different and unique success criteria. And that's what makes, I think, a good success manager is you're not gonna have a generic conversation every month or quarter or end of year about, I really like that you had this many clicks on this page, because it's going to be really different, because they have different internal comms goals or app goals and integration or experience goals and stuff. So those are the conversations I think that like make the proactive relationship really like powerful or successful.
I'd agree, and it's so again. I'll talk back to a simpler time long ago when I first got into this.
Long
space
ago,
where,
when I was a boy.
when I was a young immature pup, you would take 3 to 6 months to like build a PowerPoint deck of what it is we need, what our plan is for the next year, what our 3-year plan is for the intranet. And it's amazing how many customers that we talk to or prospects we talk to are still in that mindset. I have to almost like do an intervention with them. I have to be like, hey, listen, you don't need to plan this far ahead for some of this stuff because it's kind of easy to just switch your homepage. You don't have to have a milestone on your thing that says 1 year out, we're going to really, really undertake heavy development work on our homepage, right?
Yeah.
You can get, it's funny, you can get with the model that we have, you can get simultaneously much more strategic and high level and much more tactical. You're not in this nebulous in-between world where you lay out these goals and you're like, that's what we're going to do a year from now. You're going to find that a lot of things you had to plan for, someone's going to come to you and you're going to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
So I think life after launch now in a lot of ways is much more critical because you don't need to have all that stuff mapped out day one because you can make the change on the fly. Matt's nodding furiously.
Yeah, it is.
Man. It's easy because, but I think that's what people forget, or that it's very easy for us to forget, is that the technology now is advanced enough that it makes that that change, that that agility incredibly possible, right? People can make really rapid decisions and make very big changes to modern intranet platforms once they've made the right decision. And actually the advancement of the technology is absolutely crucially underpins the ability for us to be strategic and to take the time to analyze all that data and make those informed decisions. And because at the end of the day, once we're ready and once we know what the answer is or what the next change is, it's 1, 2, 3 clicks of a button to make that happen. And that that really, I think, is one of the best things about where we are now in terms of intranet technology today. Yeah. The tools are so powerful. Yeah. Strategy can take the lead.
Well, it makes me laugh too because in the old days, just gathering the data was like a major thing. And you didn't get the data, you had to wait 24 hours to get your data, maybe a week.
Yeah.
And then people who are really sophisticated be like, yeah, we've really got this down. Monthly, we're able to move our data into an analytics environment where we can actually look at what happened last month. And I laugh, and this is so snooty. I apologize. I know I come across as just like the snobbiest person
King
ever.
Snob.
Thank you. But I'm like, yeah, the analytics are there. Just refresh the page and the newest views come through, and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, no, seriously, just do a quick search and then refresh the page, and you'll see that it came up, in the analytics. Get out of here. I go, yeah. Like you don't have to plan an entire 2-week period for moving the data from one system to another so that you can run your reports. Even things like that. Like it moves so much more quickly. That's a really good point, Matt. Go ahead, Kate.
I have a question too, just going off of that topic of kind of the agility that you get with solutions like this or any of the most modern technology, right?
Yeah.
Even though, and Sneak, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Even though the platform is so agile and you can make those fast changes, did you run into, or do you run into, because I did with customers, there is still a lot of bureaucracy and layers you have to go through for approval for changes, particularly on high visibility areas or things that are going to, as it should be, things that are going to impact a large population of people. Right down to even little container spaces on the homepage. That team owns this and this team owns that. So if I shift this from the upper right to the lower left, not cool, or below the fold. So even though it's such an agile platform where you can make quick changes, how do you see today, what are the trends with customers and how quickly they are able to make those changes? Are they actually able to take it to be that agile even with the...
You know what's interesting? It's oddly enough, I want to say in this last year, it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. Prior to the bureaucracy, like you said, the bureaucracy kept like holding it down. Like you were tied at the hands in a sense, where you came up with these great ideas as a project team, and then you fed it back to different stakeholders, and then it couldn't move forward, right? Because someone didn't like the color, or think one thing needs to be moved up or moved down. And ultimately the change management timeline, affected the success of that change, right? Because by the time we got out of the meeting after meeting around it, it was no longer as relevant as it would be if we'd have made it that change, let's say for an upcoming quarter or holiday or things like that. But now, given, like, I want to say 2020 actually made everyone realize that all of this redlining, it slows things up. It's slowing up everyone's productivity. So actually in this last year, I've seen that change management process really shrink to one or two people, 1 or 2, 3, like I would say a handful of people in the organization, right? So as much as the product can make these quick changes, what they're doing is saying, okay, I'll meet with our stakeholders, right? I'll meet with our executive board that says a yes or no. And that turnaround happens a lot more faster now prior to. So,
that's
good things out of the pandemic.
Yeah, no, it seems like people are finally get it. And that was the thing is, like, when I was in delivery or the onboarding, I used to bang my head against the wall, and I'm like, you don't need to set up a meeting 2 weeks from now to make a decision on this one point. Like, literally change it, take a screenshot, change it back, take another screenshot, send it, and go, I'm going with this one unless I hear back from you in the next 15 minutes, because I want to keep it moving, right?
Well, we also come from, we work in
is it our generation?
I think it's our we work in an agile company. Like we make changes frequently. We make them fast. We fix forward a lot. So like, it's also a cultural thing too. I think from company to company, you have like old school corporate mentality sometimes, where like, there's procedural layers that have to happen for everything. Because even sometimes I know the question would come up in customer success conversations when a new feature was released. Well, InfoSec needs to review that first before we can talk about introducing it. Where, where it's like, not really, because you already approved the whole platform. Like they already did that. It's like, no, but so you have to play devil's advocate managers to support that model if they have it.
But I have seen executive sponsors definitely become more agile with like accepting features and understanding like the entire infrastructure of the product, right? Where InfoSec really used to be like a real barrier where it's like, wait, we have to see what, risk or concerns that may be around this implementation. They go, oh, wait, no, we have this, this agreement in place with Unily, and we understand that the security procedures that Unily takes, then absolutely, let's move forward with this. What is the prerequisites, right? So I have seen a real change actually in how things have moved in this last year.
Okay, so let's bring it back, which is life after launch. What are the most important things you need to do post launch, right? So you've gone live. Yeah. Right. You went through the stress of that. And when I say post launch, I'm usually talking like the first week or two, because you're going to have to make some very quick adjustments. Usually that's been my experience. Customers need to make some changes very rapidly because people saying, I can't find this. It's almost always there unless you literally forgot that was something that people need access to. What are the first things? And Matt, I'm going to ask you to reach way back in the way back machine to when you were a consultant. Did you get questions about this, and what are things that you used to tell customers like post launch? You got to remember to do this.
I think the biggest thing for me post launch, and something that actually it can be very easy to lose sight of. You kind of get into this mode of designing the perfect intranet, and it's going to solve all these problems, and it can be very easy when you're in that mode to forget that at the end of the day, the technology that we're producing is to serve our employees, and that hence the rise of the phrase the employee experience platform, because that's ultimately a big part of what you're doing is shaping the digital employee experience, that central hub for their day-to-day activity. And I think the key after launch activity that should be engaged minute one post launch is feedback cycles. Be really surprised how frequently you be saying, so how are you going to find out whether or not people like it?
Yeah.
Oh, we should do that. Definitely do that. Definitely
Yes,
do that.
absolutely.
Because like Sanika said, there'll be small things like maybe your navigation isn't quite landing correctly for one audience, or the homepage just kind of isn't getting the right news to the right people, or whatever that kind of minor thing is. And normally it's very quick fixes as well. And you just need a very simple mechanism. So anybody out there who is listening to the podcast right now, and your intranet has been live for 20 years or been live for 5 minutes, make sure you've got a really prominent intranet feedback form and start the feedback cycle. Work out how you're going to get the feedback in and how you're going to communicate back to the audience about what you've heard and how you'll act on it. Post, intranet, go live, crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Caitlin, what's one of the things that, again, reach way back in the Wayback Machine? What was something you always told them to do post-launch? One thing, 2 things if you really want to be an overachiever.
Get the gold star.
The feedback loop. I mean, Matt stole my thunder of what the feedback loop is something I always
Winner.
Yeah. The feedback loop is something I always encourage. And then also I know Sanika's mentioned it a few times too, but live checking the metrics and the engagement numbers, because honestly, sometimes, not often, but sometimes you'd see numbers that were really unexpected. If it was trending lower, it's like, hey, normally this is always checked, right? You're making sure everybody has access and everything, but this isn't what we expected. And then all of a sudden you'll realize maybe we need to make a quick configuration change, or make sure people have proper access and that they know where it's available in different devices and locations and wherever. But that was something I always recommended too. Because we have the ability to do literally live tracking of data.
Yeah.
Make sure you have somebody monitoring that. The other thing is feedback forms, super powerful. I also always said, run a social campaign. If you're using Unily Social, have an Ask Me Anything during the day so that people can feedback. More often than not, it was, oh my God, this is amazing. But you would get really good constructive feedback too. So I always said, if you have the capacity, which you should, have your war room ready, which most customers did. They had their launch week war room, and they'd have people live monitoring social channels too, so that they could say look how quick I made this change. Based on your feedback.
So before I ask you, and Sanika, you kind of hinted around it, but I'm going to ask you again. But before I do that, what's amazing to me is, again, so much of this is probably different than what a lot of our customers are used to hearing, because, again, they're used to it's custom, it's on premise. They get so bogged down in the just day-to-day keeping the lights on, they can never, ever, ever even consider things like this, which are sound. And I remember telling customers this, and they're like, well, when am I going to have time to do that? And I'm like, trust me, you're going to have a lot of time now, and this is your opportunity to do something with it. I'll tell you mine, and then I'll ask Sanika what yours is, because I don't want you to steal my thunder, because I have a feeling about you.
Caitlin stole a few of mine, but go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
you see that? We're all swiping.
The thievery.
The one that I tell people post-launch is most critical, and you kind of said it, Sanika, is produce content at regular intervals. Because I can't tell you how many times in the old days where they would do all this work and create all this content, and the information architecture would be all in place, and they'd launch it, and then they wouldn't touch it for a month.
Yeah,
it would just
absolutely.
sit there. And one of my first pieces of advice, if not the main piece of advice I gave them, was you should have a plan day 2 to do something really dramatic on your homepage to let people know this is a new world order and things are going to be updated frequently. So move something from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, just to elicit a reaction.
You're stealing all my stuff. You're stealing my
I know,
stuff.
no. That's why I did it, because I could see. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I think everything you said is right. Absolutely. Caitlin and Matt made really good points, because that's what I tell clients. After launch, my next question is, what's next? How are we going to keep on evolving? What's next? How are we implementing features? What we need to continually continuously, like, be feeding your audience intriguing features, intriguing content. Like you said, move the page around. Like I say, like, a beautiful site is only beautiful but for so long. Like,
That's a really good point.
It is. A beautiful site is great, and I loved it at launch and all of the fanfare that came with it. But how is this going to be valuable, right? Are you going to give me new apps and tools? Are you going to give me a new feature? So after launch, my initial thing is, what's next? Let's start building a roadmap. Let's build out the next few quarters so that the end user has no idea all the amazing things you have to offer. Because when, like, you know what I mean? A CSM on our team always has like this great analogy that, launch is when the child is born. It's when the work really starts. It's not the end of the road. It's actually the starting point. So once they know that you need to continuously, be implementing new features in addition to content, right? Not only, not just features and content, but we want to think widgets and visual components. And back to the social campaign, I think during 2020, I saw some of the best social campaigns I think I've seen in a long time, from talent shows to recipes. The level of engagement that was happening and seeing people's culture really come into a digital space was really nice.
I think that's it, right? I think right there is a big part of it, which is there's a mindset change, and it's required because the technology is where it is. But that mindset change really is, you don't, nowadays, if you're buying these kind of employee experience platforms, you're not buying a point in time solution. You are buying something which is going to evolve with your organization. And that's a really good thing, because it's going to rise to meet the challenges of tomorrow that maybe you haven't foreseen today. And I think that mindset change that, if I could encourage intranet managers and internal communicators who own their intranets to think about, is to, never be satisfied with what you've got now. Always be iterating. Always be looking for the next thing, the next little cherry on top of the cake that's going to drive engagement with your people that little bit higher, make the digital experience for your employees that little bit sweeter. That really it is. It's always iterating, and I love it. It's a fast paced environment, but it's awesome.
Okay, so I want concrete examples, and we don't have to name names, but I want you to, again, reach deep into that well of knowledge, pull something from the deep recesses of your memory and brain. What's an example, or again, if you want that gold star like Caitlin's always shooting for, 2 examples. I'm teasing, of course.
Leaderboards.
It's
my life.
Caitlin is one of the single most competitive people I have ever met in my life, and it's not obvious at first, and then it sneaks through, and she's like, I'm gonna get number 1 on that, and you're like, wait, what?
Could you imagine how excited I was that I was above the leaderboard on her? I was like,
I know.
I get a lot of shady outreach from people being like, did you see this? Yes, of course I've seen it. I live monitor it.
She live monitors her.
Anyways, back to the topic at hand.
What has been one, and again, you can change names to protect the innocent of customers. Yeah. What's an example of a customer or prospect that you've seen or heard about where post go live they've done something really good to kind of keep it fresh, or where they've demonstrated an ability to do, like Matt said, evolve rapidly as they go along? Because I have a couple. But I don't think I can mention them by name, so I'll just give the examples. But I'm curious, does anyone have one that they can name, I guess is the question. And if you don't know, that's fine. We'll name them and then we'll edit it out. We'll put a black bar over your mouth and bleep you. So say their name once. Does anyone want to go first? No one wants this. This is the third rail. The roll for
a good... I don't know if I can name them, but I'm going to name them and beat me. I think does a good job at that when it comes to branding and, reinventing their site. Every time we have a new feature, you see it reflected, and not on their homepage, but they definitely make sure that it's implemented in the social features, right? They have social on the homepage. They have it very prominent in the navigation, but they are constantly adding new reactions. They're changing the archive pages. They're creating new pages for like initiatives and things, and using new widgets, right? So where they know the homepage requires additional executive leadership and there's an entire change management system around the homepage, but what they're doing is if there's an initiative that comes up or an objective in the organization, they create a brand new site page for that using totally new features, all new widgets, and they go, oh my God, how did you guys do that so quickly? We just suggested that in the social feed yesterday. How did you guys spin that up so quickly, you know? And I think that does a great job.
Good one. Matt,
I've
you're smiling.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I've got a story, and it's do you know, it's not even my customer, but like whatever, sharing the story anyway. But I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name them. Well, anyway, this
Customer
client,
B.
Customer B, and they work in the aviation industry, and they basically took the homepage, the communications homepage that they had done before. Their internet homepage was focused on delivering bite-sized communication articles, and then we rolled out the new kind of comms homepage feature, which I know you guys will be aware of, which is basically like designed to, you know, present content in more intuitive ways and rank content based upon what was most popular, for example, and things like that, kind of giving you more of that Netflix-like experience for your internal communications. And they adopted that like in a heartbeat, like really quickly, like snapped that up, rolled it out, and like it all happened pretty quickly. So that's a really good one for me. Just given that the homepage is often in the intranet world seen as a very sacred piece of real estate, which is, needs to go through lots of approvals before, radical change is made. But yeah, straight on it, adopt that, popped it in. It was good. It's, it just showed that they were always trying to push the boundaries of the experiences they delivered. So it was a good one.
That's fair. Caitlin, anything that comes to mind?
An example, I won't name them. I'm not sure they would want to be named. It's a large, I'll give you just a background on the company. It's a large, 40,000 people, multinational retailer. Sure. Not including any of the, it's not which you already, that I'm referencing since you already mentioned them. But they were super, super hesitant about launching a social intranet. They had previous issues with that. So their launch plans did not include, social, which I strongly recommended against, because so much of what we're trying to do and what the technology we provide is increasing the two-way communications and helping people network. And they quickly adapted, especially with some of the iterations we made in our own internal, social feature, to better monitor social threads going on. But once they got sign off from legal, which it had to go through a review process, which is totally expected and fine, they decided, I think it's time to introduce commenting and reacting, they started with reactions and then introduced commenting, and then introduced an all conversations page, which there's another client we work with as well who did the same thing. They don't have an all conversations experience, but they had the commenting. And I just think because of the way that we work, the way that we use like our consumer, like social media, if that's the right word
right.
to use. Like we expect that and like that. I want to be able to comment and react to stories and share them, but I want like an all up feed to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So that was an iteration they were able to make pretty quickly though, because while they as a team had decided this is going to be too complicated with our internal policies, they quickly saw a need and an engagement level on the commenting and reacting to content. Yes. So that there was a need to promote that further and kind of like iterate on the experience that they were providing.
And that's quite big. That's quite big, right? The employee voice thing and kind of just rolling that out. That's not that's quite big change.
Yeah. The theme there again,
natural
though, is
graduation.
It is. And the theme there is the technology isn't what's holding you back. It's the internal policies, the nervousness, the emotional component of it. I used to say that outside of Microsoft Outlook, the intranet is the most visible piece of technology in an organization, right? Because if your Outlook goes down or your email client goes down, oh my God, you are in trouble. And I said, but a close second is the intranet. It's, again, once upon a time, I ran an intranet. I ran an intranet. I was a consultant, and we stood up one for an organization, and they ran their operations through their intranet, and there was an outage. It was on-prem, okay? And there was an outage. They were a garbage hauler, and they did all their weighing of the trucks and the interface with that application via their intranet. It was a weight kind of system they put on their intranet homepage. And guess what? Intranet went out at the middle of the night when garbage haulers are coming back and getting weighed, and they said they had a backup of trucks for 2 miles.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And they couldn't get garbage. Could you imagine living on that route where the trucks were lined up?
2 miles of garbage.
Yeah, I mean, look, I question. 2 miles of garbage.
Yikes.
That's a bad day for everyone on that
It's like
street.
the ship. It's like full circle. The ship.
Look at that. We
I
came
was
back
just
to
going to
the- we
say
came
that.
the
Back to the
sewers.
ship.
That is how you round off a podcast. This is
That folks, is
The
how
ship.
you do it. That's how you
Ship
bring
with
it
a
full
P.
circle. Yeah, careful how you misspell things. No, that's exactly right. I'll give my example, and then we'll talk about a couple more things as we start to wind down. I was with a customer, and it's funny because I wasn't on the CSM side, so I didn't get to follow them and stick with them, right? But I remember I onboarded this customer. We had great chemistry. I really hope we get them on the podcast. They're wonderful people. They crack me up. And they had their IT team very heavily involved alongside comms. And those teams were thick as thieves. They were friendly. They got along. It was wonderful. Like, they just worked well together. They loved joking at each other's expense. And as a result, you could tell they just worked well together. And they had a thing where they're like, yeah, we're going to do a lot of custom development on the platform. And I was like, okay. That's a thing. Go for it, right? I showed them what you can do. I gave them a couple lessons, and I said, Godspeed. It's been fun. I'll talk to you later. Well, I came back, I want to say six months later, maybe. I don't know the exact timeline. I say 6 months for everything. Who knows what time is anymore?
3 years later.
Right, 3 years later. And they literally had done a ton of development work, and I think they had a pace set out where they were doing like 1.5. Their pace was 1.5 widgets a month, pumping out new things. Now, that doesn't sound that impressive, but you think when you're 2 years down the line and you multiply 24 times 1.5, someone please help me desperately. Is that 36? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, nailed it. Got that. Mental math comes to the rescue.
Nailed
They
it.
had it was like close to 36 widgets at
they
the
built.
end of 2 years. And now, you don't need to do custom development, but their whole thing was like, well, we pumped out these widgets because we wanted to bring really sophisticated, advanced changes to the platform, and we wanted to do it on a schedule so people saw that we were making progress. And they had that built into like their strategic plan. We have these goals, they're modest. They thought they were modest. I was like, you guys are wild. But they were like, yeah, a lot of the stuff we used to spend our time on, we don't have to worry about it anymore. So we can focus on these big strategic things that we think are small improvements that deliver a lot. And that one, I was so impressed because they came to that conclusion without me giving them my sagely advice. And it shows you, like, they don't need me, is what I'm saying. They needed me. But
You're getting in the way.
I really am. I really am just always in the way. Okay. So on that note, I just want to do a quick wrap up. Sanika, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully you'll come back and you'll teach us more about the dark arts of customer success managers, and we'll talk analytics. Analytics is one of Caitlin's favorite things. I know you deal with it heavily. I want to go deep on that topic alone. Give it its own. Caitlin's being very modest and good. That's
I'm
my
so
thing.
excited.
I know.
excited.
I'm an analytics nerd myself, so I'm like, bring it on.
I mean, second to
Exactly.
customer success, I'll tell you the data.
Yes.
Data.
Well, we'll go deep on analytics. That's the whole
Yeah.
point, right? Is that you can't just kind of talk about it in passing without going deep. So we'll deal with that. But anything you have coming up? You have a vacation or anything coming up, Sanika? I think you do.
I do. I'm out next week for the first time in a long time, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually not going anywhere. I'm just gonna explore. I'm actually gonna explore Long Island, so I'm looking forward to that because I really haven't done that. I'm a city girl.
Long
Originally
Island
from
is a
Brooklyn.
place in New York for those of you that do not know.
Yes, it is.
I guess people outside. I shouldn't assume that outside the U.S.
Yes.
You probably wouldn't know
It's
Long
such a
Island.
New York
Yes,
thing.
it is a
like-
New York thing, and I was raised in the city, so Long Island is like kind of suburbia, but I
Yeah, I
have
was
loved
going to say
it.
Long Island is the country.
It is,
for
but I
people.
have fell
It's
in
New York's
love
version
with
of the
it.
country.
I
is.
have fell in love with the country, and so next week I'm going to take some time to explore about with the girls. So
Well deserved.
excited.
Enjoy it.
And all the beautiful beaches too.
Yeah.
Long Island's got
Yes.
some good ones.
Yes.
Matt, what do you got planned? It's gonna be April already, and we got to start enjoying some time to ourselves. Anything coming up?
I actually have a 2-day week next week. I'm only in Monday and Tuesday.
Lovely.
And I'm taking a solid week off for Easter. And like Sanika, I will be doing very little. But it's gonna
gardening?
be good all the same. Maybe. My roses are, looking real good at the moment. So fingers crossed we'll start to see those coming through soon. But yeah, I will need to do a little bit. The garden's a bit of a mess. But, I'm just going to take it easy. Even though you can't go away and do anything, we do all still need to take that time for ourselves. It's, strenuous times all round. So I'm going to enjoy a little bit of downtime. It's going to be good.
Well earned. Enjoy. If you do get out the garden, enjoy it. Matt has beautiful roses. He shared the pictures prior.
Yeah, well,
And I'm
that'll be
looking
my
forward to this year's
podcast
batch.
footage in the
There
next
you
one.
go.
I'll
Perfect.
bring a little bit of footage.
Caitlin, anything for you?
Well, other than booking I think I mentioned I have 6 weddings this year that I've told everyone about because I'm like, oh my God. I mean, from a year of isolation to 6 weddings, is a lot. But I have near-term vacation planned for those, but I have nothing interesting happening in the next week of my life. So
That makes me sad. I'll tell you what. Get a library card. Get a library card or watch House. There's people here to help you find something
Interesting
to keep
things.
you entertained. That's right. Awesome. Well, look, I
watch
hope
House.
you do fun. Watch some House. Do anything.
does anyone want to hang out with me on the internet?
Let's
Careful
talk
what you wish for
intranets.
there,
Yeah.
Caitlin.
Sit
I
with
have
me
all
and
these
talk
interesting things to-
intranets.
Are we doing an intranet dating podcast?
Oh,
There it
how
is.
about an intranet speed dating? Widget you in and out.
Maybe you randomize the profile page you end up.
It's called, that was MySpace. MySpace.
And that's where we'll leave it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you all for joining. Again, if you're out there in the universe, please make sure you're liking and subscribing either to the YouTube channel and videos there or catching us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Spotify, we're on Google, we're on Apple, you name it. We're there. We'd love to have you join us again, and we'll see you later. Thank you.